to order. The first agenda item is to cover the special meetings, and the first one is a memorandum of understanding with Destination Downtown Edenton, and Town Manager Corey Gooden is going to handle the presentation on this agenda item.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And the Executive Director, Chess Chesson, he's here with us, but if we miss anything, he can fill in. But as part of the annual accreditation for the North Carolina Main Street program, the Town of Edenton and Destination Downtown have to enter into this agreement annually. What it does is help define the responsibilities and roles of each organization. The North Carolina Main Street program and our local nonprofit Main Street Edenton work directly with the Town of Edenton to help encourage business development through the lens of preservation. At this time, I do recommend that Council approve the memorandum of understanding as presented.
And this is something we do every year as a part of the annual accreditation process for the Main Street program.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we have a motion and a second to approve this memorandum of understanding?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Are there any questions of Corey or any further discussion? Okay, there being none, I will entertain a vote. All in favor of approving the memorandum of understanding with Destination Downtown Edenton, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The next agenda item is a memorial bench request. Back on October 28th of this year, the Town of Edenton received an official request from family and friends of Raines Simonson to place a bench in or near the downtown park area in memory of Raines. Raines was a young fellow that died much too soon and captured the hearts of a lot of people here in Edenton. One of his favorite places in all of Edenton was our park area, and I think it would be a great way to honor a great kid whose life was cut too short. A close family friend, Kevin Gagnon, is here tonight. Kevin, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to make some remarks in support of this memorial bench, please come forward to do so.
I'm not much of a public speaker. Come before you today to suggest the placement of a park bench in the waterfront area to honor Raines Simonson. Many of you are familiar with Raines' story. He was a beloved son of Hayes and Micah Simonson. And despite battling cancer for the majority of his young life, he inspired us all with his strength, courage, and unwavering spirit. What truly stands out about Raines, though, is how he was able to unite this community in the fight against cancer. In his short time with us, Raines brought together individuals, families, and organizations to a cause far greater than any of us. His legacy of compassion and community will resonate for generations to come. A park bench placed in a peaceful and meaningful location is a simple yet fitting way to honor Raines' memory. It serves as a place for reflection, for visitors to pause and appreciate the unity and goodwill he fostered in his time with us. Raines may have only had a brief time on this earth, but his impact is lasting. I believe this bench is a small but significant way to ensure that his spirit, his fight, and his ability to bring people together continue to inspire us. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you. You did a great job. Sold yourself short. I know Councilman Sellers was close to Raines and also close to the family. Is there anything you need to add, Patrick, or feel like you need to say?
I would just thank Kevin for spearheading this. I know it's a group of Micah and Hayes' friends that have come together, and Kevin took the initiative to get this done. I believe him and Micah have been friends for how long now?
Oh man, since we were like 5?
Yeah. Ever since I knew who either of them were, they were in the same friend group. So I think it's a great gesture by them. And I think the location inside the park is a perfect place for it. The Simonson family uses that park a lot, enjoys it, and I think it'll be a perfect location.
And Corey, can you share with us just a few of the details about the location and other details regarding this memorial bench?
Sure, Mayor. list of options that we had discussed with the family and actually had a conversation with our public works director. And we had identified some of the places on the interior playground area within the fencing where we really needed to do some updates and to do some replacements. And so one of the things we had asked the family, would they be willing for us to replace one of the wooden benches that's inside of this area with something a little more permanent that's a lot longer lasting and doesn't require so much maintenance and upkeep versus some of the wooden ones. And they obliged, and we're glad to do that. And feel like that'll be just the right space for the family to continue to use, to see the children that are still there and enjoying that space, just like Rains did.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve this memorial bench request in honor and memory of Rain Simonson.
So,
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor of this memorial bench request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that request carries. Corey, thank you for your work on that. The third and final matter that we have on our special meeting is the consideration of the Harbor Town's lease agreement at 504 South Broad Street. And I'm going to hand this over to Town Manager Corey Gooden to give us a report on that.
And thank you, Mayor. So the space in question for the lease is actually the office space in here located at the 101 West Border Street entrance, which is also a part of this entire structure here at 504 South Broad. The lease that was shared is consistent with the former Edenton partnership lease, which includes the common area, the 3 offices, as well as the kitchen area here. The office is intended to be a part of the home office and storefront for this nonprofit program. This lease does total $1,500 an annual for the space, which is consistent with what we had seen there previously. And I am recommending that council approve the lease as presented that was included in the packet.
Corey, would they be here every day in this office?
There would be at least a weekly presence here, and some staffing would be there daily. As far as hours of operation, I haven't gotten all those details as far as Monday through Sunday, but at least a weekly presence, yes, sir.
And for the purposes of getting on the table for more discussion and questions, I would entertain a motion regarding the lease agreement. Okay, do we have a second?
second.
Okay, we've got a motion and second. Now we reopen the floor for further discussion. Corey, I did have one question. Was the original proposal for a 5-year lease, and due to council concerns, you have recommended that we cut that down to a 1-year lease?
Yes, and I agree. If we can do that to allow them time to get started and to better understand their needs there, it will also allow us to understand how we can better accommodate them in the future. So I do recommend that if we consider any amendments, that we look at the term. That way we have a reasonable amount of time to revisit that in the near future to see if there's anything we need to change or adapt. So yes, sir, 1 year.
Basically.
Yeah.
Corey, how did you arrive at the financial part?
The value that was there was the same monthly cost that we had shared with the Edenton partnership, which is another one of the nonprofits here that we work with, and that was the starting point. That was the only historical information we had in comparison for our other nonprofits, which is consistent with what we've seen, even with the relocation of the 3 nonprofits that were there upstairs to Town Hall.
I think that's my only concern, is just the rent amount of $1,500 a month. And you can go to any other private entity and you would be able to obtain rent for $1,500 a month. I get that they're a nonprofit, but they still generate revenue at the end of the day. And I don't feel like we should be, I'm sorry, I can't wrap my head around just extending that to them at $1,500 a year. Sorry, $1,500 a year, not a month. So that's my only concern. And I don't know. I like to look at what the going rate would be and kind of revisit it from there. Again, if partnership their structure, their financial structure is a little bit different. They're not generating as much revenue as a business like this, or any of our other partners as well. Their revenue should be pretty much a little bit more substantial than what ours are, what theirs are. So again, $1,500 is just way, way, way too low. For me at least, anyway. I don't know anyone else though.
Well, Councilman Costin, you and I had discussed it, and you shared your concern with me, and I had somewhat of the same concern, and I felt better about it when I found out that we were no longer talking about a 5-year lease, and we were now talking about a 1-year lease. So that helped ease my concerns, and also the more that I thought about it is, this is not a true arm's length third-party lease agreement. It is someone that we're partnering with, and I'm also aware that substantial funds from this group are going to come in the form of $2 million to help refurbish and do some projects here on our waterfront. So with that in mind, and the fact that it's a 1-year lease, and we can maybe take a look at their financials for year 2 through 5, I feel better about it than I did before.
How many years has this project been underway though?
What's that?
How many years has this project been underway? The Auburn Town project?
So we're into year 2, but if you remember the beginning of that primarily was the boat design, the build, so the actual tours that were approved did not start until midsummer this year. And so we've only seen these vessels in operation for less than 6 months, maybe a little more than that. The project itself did start out in 2022. However, most of that initial timing was the creations of the boats, securing the vessels themselves for ones that were not prototypes, establishing scheduling, developing the brand to try to do the draw. So it has been in existence longer than just a year, but when we talk about the actual amenity that they offer, that's been something that, if you remember, the ribbon cutting was just earlier this summer.
Have we had any other groups interested in that?
Not at this time, no,
Okay.
sir.
Been advertised though, is that right?
Not really, no, sir.
I've got Councilman Colston's same concerns, and would point out, this organization, we haven't received any of that $2 million yet, have we?
No, sir.
And that number's already come down from 2 million, it's more like 1.8 now, is that correct?
Well, the original allocation was for $2 million, of which we have identified some of the funding needs that would, the remaining balance would be lower than that. But that's for breakwater improvements and harbor improvements.
And since the ribbon cutting, how many times has the ferry left Edenton? I mean, we're talking single digits, if that. And then it's nice to have them here. I want this project to work. But at this point, they haven't given us much, and here we are about to give them something. And $125 a month, that's less than what my dad and Steve Lane charge me, and I'm family, from my rent down the street. I mean, that is, the other organizations here, or that have used that space, are very close to us. I don't think Harbor Town has that relationship, such as the chamber or Destination Downtown. So, I mean, 125 is, we might as well let them have it for free. So I'd like to explore a more legitimate rent, at least something that gives us something that we can actually use to our benefit.
Well, and one thing to add, Councilman, is that, a lot of the timing that we're talking about before this point has been a big piece geared towards the planning efforts that were needed for this once the actual vessels were here. If you remember that we were named the home port of this operation right from the get-go, and I think timing has gotten us to the point now where we finally have gotten a vacancy in a space to actually be that home port, and I think that had some of the negative effect that you're expressing about the number of trips here. I know that within the last 45 days, I know that we've had at least 2 very successful events here where we partnered with the Main Street program as well as the Harbor Towns during our Teapot 250 Resolve celebrations. And those were very successful events, but you know, I do hear you when I think about what's happened since the ribbon cutting, and then I think it was you know, very early on. I don't think we had a space to really welcome them completely with the office needs and the employment needs here, and I think this was our kind of our first opportunity to do that.
I believe there were other opportunities. We still have upstairs, there was still commercial retail space that they could have rented, but again, they would have got it at 125 anywhere else. And I think that's the opportunity.
What is the going rate of storefront here right now?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Chess, you know?
They would pay for any kind of improvements
That's
within
right.
the space too.
That's right.
Okay.
It's, depending on the quality of the space, how recently it was upfitted, it's anywhere from $14 to $18 a square foot for the year.
Is
But
there
that's
any urgency to
commercial or
this? I mean, is there an opportunity for us to table this and to give you authority to go back and negotiate a higher rental, and then we vote on that higher rental? And again, I respect everything that you guys are saying, and I've not been impressed one bit with their rollout. I've not been impressed one bit with their organizational skills. I think we've got some changes in order that'll help us out with that. And I'm just afraid we're missing the bigger picture. And
What are the other?
I don't want
towns
us to be
doing?
penny wise and pound foolish, and, you know, we may be doing that. But I hear what you're saying, and perhaps you can talk to them and see if you can come back to us with the higher amount, because it seems like that's the sticking point right now, is the amount.
Are the other towns doing something similar?
No, I mean,
Where
currently,
those, yeah.
they don't even have the infrastructure in place to accommodate the office needs, and for us.
Harbor Towns doesn't have a presence in those
Yeah,
towns, yeah.
Would we expect them to hire local Edentonians?
Yes, yes. I believe that is to be true, and in conversations I've had with them, that's been the big thing. They've been trying to find that local workforce to have a place for them to report to, and that's why I think if there were concessions to be made, I think that 1-year term really kind of gets us to that very, near time to revisit this thing if we're unsure of these questions, and that way we have a chance to see what the local impact is, what they can actually afford, what's a reasonable price on something in a unique space like this, for comparison purposes. And I'd be glad to revisit the discussion with them, or if we have to revisit this at a 6-month pace or a 1-year pace. I think we do need to consider some type of sunset time period to let this thing really have a true presence here in Edenton if we're going to be called the home port.
I think they had 2 years of planning before, or 3 years of planning before executing the project. Rental space, office space is part of your overhead cost, no matter if it was from the town or, private entity or just what, the cost is the cost. When they were hiring employees, whether it's the captain or the director, they didn't say, because you're a nonprofit, I'm going to take a deduction in my salary. The cost is the cost. When they went after contractors to fix the boats, the cost was the cost. Same thing when it comes down to renting an office space. That's just how I see it. I don't feel like the town's citizens should be taking a cut from that, saying, okay, we're going to extend you this courtesy. That's my opinion. Maybe a little, but not much.
But those vendors are not partners, though. Those vendors are in private business, and we are not a private business, and yes, we do have to keep our eye on the revenue, but this is somewhat of a partnership, and that's where
They're not pushing you right now, are they?
Well, and
for
one thing,
financing?
I think we'd like to have something closed out by the end of the year, but one thing to also consider is it doesn't include their utilities, their water and sewer, any type of local purchases that will be made here to help accommodate the needs of that office. I mean, this is just simply the base rent. It does exclude their utilities, which, that would be one more customer, paying for, trash pickup, water and sewer and electric and anything else they opt to request.
I know
Well,
there's
it's
a,
off-season, and you say you'd like to get it, and they'd like to get it done by the end of the year. That does give us a 30-day window, or a 2-week window before our next meeting to talk with them, because, I mean, I'm hearing what everybody's saying. And, we don't know what they'll pay right now.
I guess if we can
Can I
table
make a
it,
suggestion?
You sure, man?
Why not just go in into the 1-year lease and see how this thing runs and works? And then, if it looks like it's gonna be successful, we can ask for more money on that second year that they're here.
Can we first go to them and see if
Yeah, we can discuss
that
it.
number is set in stone with them first? We still got another meeting in December, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we put it on as a special agenda item, and I guess between now and then have some discussion on them and ourselves too.
Can we just table it right now?
If someone would like to make that motion to do that.
If we have a motion, a second, and a
I make a
vote.
motion to table it right now, and
I'll second
bring it
that.
up.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling the matter, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we table that matter with the instructions that our town manager talk to them and see if there's some higher amount that you can come back to us with. Okay, well, that concludes our special meeting portion of our agenda, and now we move to our committee meetings. Councilman Miller, it looks as though we're going to keep you busy tonight, so I'm going to hand it over to you. It looks like we got 6 agenda items for your committee.
That's correct. Mayor, we got 6 items to go over tonight. The first item, Police Department salary review. You remember at our November 12th council meeting, council members requested town staff to review options to improve police officer recruitment and retention. The department currently has 6 vacancies, and the police department is having much difficulty competing regionally to fill these vacancies. These officer vacancies are causing a lot of stress with our active workers right now, and this is doing a lot just to keep, they're working hard just to keep the department staffed. As a result of this troubling issue, council members had requested the town staff to review the police staffing needs and develop a plan to offset some of the salaries to help. At this time, I'd like to ask Corey if he could kind of update us on this salary plan.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. So we did, Virginia and myself, as well as the police chief, did try to work through some things, and the police chief's here to help us with anything. We had conducted an internal survey of towns within our area, which had started really before we started our conversations with the folks from the MAP group. However, when we had our kickoff meetings with them, we did specifically pinpoint Ms. Becky to work with us on getting us as much data back as we could to begin with the police department. I have some of that data here to discuss, but what we were able to work through within our current budget, if council would consider this option, which would get us from January 1st, 2025 through June 30 of 2025, was a cadet salary of $53,000 after completing basic law enforcement training or higher, starting around 55, and our corporal level shifting from up to 57.5. And so we worked through that, and based on those, what this does allow is for 13 total raises, of which would impact 2 new hires at the newer rates. It would also raise the 2 current cadets to match this rate. It would also allow us to offer increases for our younger patrol officers to meet or exceed those new rates, as well as raises for our more senior patrol officers to meet or exceed these new rates. It also allowed us for the corporal positions to do 3 increases to meet or exceed this new rates, and then also allotted for a $2 raise for our sergeants. which is really kind of working our way from patrol to cadet, or cadet to patrol officer to corporal, and then up to the supervisor role. These are recommendations that we have found that do not impact this current fiscal year budget. These are also based on a list of locations that we have shared with Becky, of which a lot of the numbers that we are seeing are matching. Particularly, there are two from her review that are still in question that she is waiting on updated data on, that are surprisingly our three lowest numbers. We're waiting to hear back on the city of Bellhaven, Elizabeth City, and Williamston. Her initial review today with these three data points that need to be updated are showing us an average around 41, which we still believe to be low. She did mention that she was waiting on updated data from two of these, and the third had opted, because of a complete resignation of their entire department, to move forward with a higher number than what their range was to begin with, to start filling those spaces.
Can you let us know what that town was and what that rate of pay was?
That was the city of Bellhaven, and as advertised now, they're at $46,980. However, that city opted to start their salaries at $55. And so, once again, that aligns with what we had seen within our northeast region. Chief, is there anything we've missed as far as the locations that we had looked at?
No, sir. We contacted everybody around and tried to get accurate salaries. And I know there's a couple that's ticked up in the last month or two due to some of the recruitment issues that we have. I think I shared with you, Windsor went up just a couple of weeks ago. They had talked about it, and then they went into effect September the 1st. So we're right in line with everyone else.
And that was consistent with what Becky had shared, that the cities that she had in concerns with, that I'm trying to pull those up now, which I'm missing in the documents.
Chief, are we, with our openings, are we getting a lot of applicants for them?
We haven't been at our current rate. I'm hoping that when we get at a competitive rate to get where everybody else is, I think that should put us about where we need to be able to compete on a normal plane field with everybody else.
But are you getting calls, and once you say the salary, they back off? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been recruited at several community colleges around, and when one of the first things everybody asks with anything is, what is your salary? And I tell them, and they're like, well, I can go to X, Y, Z, and get $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 more. And I try to sell our small town atmosphere and our wonderful community, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help them put anything on their table.
Look at this chart, we're so low.
Yeah, and this is an agenda item tonight because the majority of the council expressed concern
Yes.
about not being able to recruit and retain quality police officers. At the same time, we're not ignoring other departments. We've got a salary study that's going to be completed in March, and we're going to look at all of our employees across the board. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we had that discussion with the employees when we got started in the salary study. My understanding from the last meeting was we need to try to figure out something immediately to help with the retention as well as some of the recruitment. Based on what we've seen, and we've got a long list of other towns and county sheriff's departments that we have looked at. We tried to be very reasonable in who we were seeing folks go to, who we were losing them to, or either, finding out later on that they had actually accepted a job there. Which the good thing is there were only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations that there was any discrepancies from the original ones that we had shared. So it was good to see that what we had found internally was consistent on the majority of what Ms. Becky had shared. So once again, that really kind of affirms some of the values that we're seeing. They are slightly above what we've estimated now. And I do think that we'll see a number closer to the 50 number as an average across the towns that we asked her to survey, of which Bellhaven, Elizabeth City, and the town of Williamson were ones that we knew right out of the gate that we had discrepancy with, to our benefit, that were lower. This is an option we have now for us to consider that we could do in January. The budget does afford it. It does allow us to impact 13 employees, 2 of which would be new hires. I mean, we could make some changes to lower some of this, but I don't think the lowering of these numbers will really gain us any more additional candidates. I think this is what we've gotten here. It utilizes the funds that were approved, and they also allow us to recruit as many people and keep as many people as we currently have, because it does impact the majority from our sergeants down, which is our active patrol staff. 11 employees.
And I don't think anything's changed in the last 14 to 30 days as far as our priorities. So based on this information that we have, we're going to move it forward to full consideration at the next meeting. Is that?
That's right. I have one question. For the, well, first off, it's coming from the existing department budget, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then second one, what about the ambassadors? I know we talked about this month before, right before the beginning of the fiscal year. The pay structure is a little bit different. I guess they don't receive any type of raises in comparison to, you know, the other departments, public works, what is it,
That's right. They're all
the park attendants, right. So that was a concern.
And
Is that something that we're gonna look into as well?
Yeah, we shared that with Becky, that we had to try to figure out what was a palatable path for us, for our part-time employees going forward, because we had started to see that they'd been here with us a couple of years, had not seen any type of cost of living change, anything like that. And we do want to include that as part of the salary study. I mean, what do we do for, you know, those employees who are less than 1,080 hours a year that are with us, that have been here consistently multiple years, really as part of their annual increases. You know, what is that structure? Should it be the same as a full-time staff? Probably not, because I mean, there's a lot of other things that we consider there. We talk about benefits and how many hours that they serve, and the, I guess, laxness in their scheduling. So I do think we need to do something. What is that answer? I don't know yet.
I guess we can mimic whatever Public Works is doing with the ambassadors. I think they'll appreciate that. That's the feedback that I got from the employees. That, you know, they just don't see any type of.
Isn't that something though that we can hold off till July, or are you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I'm not saying do it now, but just, you know, it's just been something that was raised a couple of times by the ambassadors.
And we did make sure to share that with Becky.
Make sure the committee recommends forwarding these changes to full council.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Miller. Agenda item number
Item
2 under your committee.
Number 2, Northeast Eastern Regional Airport Engineering Professional Services Agreement. Back in October, the town publicized a request for qualifications for professional services and planning for engineering services to the Northeast Regional Airport. The Chowan Herald was notified early October, and then that request ran through the end of October. The Talbot and Bright firm was the only engineering firm to respond to the particular proposal, and town staff have recommended that Talbot and Bright do the work, and administrative committee recommends forwarding this request contract with Talbot and Bright to full council. Okay, item number 3, Wolfstein Group Professional Services Agreement. The current contract agreement is about to end around December 31st with the Wolfstein Group Professional Services Agreement. Town staff recommend we renew their contract for the next 2 years in order to provide the town with long-term planning and economic development needs. Administrative Committee recommends forwarding this renewal request to full council.
And Corey, it would be helpful, I think, to council, and we'd have plenty of time to vote on it by year's end, if we could have some of the things that have been accomplished
You know what?
through them.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on the mayor said. It would be nice to maybe have that individual come before us and maybe give a brief presentation. Is that possible?
Yeah.
I'll reach out to both
Okay.
the Wolfenstein group as well as the next one, which is very
Right.
similar.
And is the contract requested for 2 years because of the way the legislative sessions are scheduled?
That's correct.
At the same rate, though, is that correct?
Yes, no rate increase between either items 4 or 3 or 4, excuse me.
Okay. And Councilman Miller, we were just discussing 3, but the conversation goes the same.
It goes the
for
same
4.
with 4, which is basically the same. The current contract ends the 31st, and again, we'd like to extend it for the next 2 years to provide the town with long-term planning and economic development needs. So administrative committee recommends forwarding this renewal agreement request to full council.
And with the same request that if they can get here, and also if you can compile for that group, the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 5, Main Street Edenton Economic Development Agreement. The Main Street Edenton Economic Development Agreement with the town in the amount of $289,500 will cover the cost for the initial design, pre-development work associated with the project Teapot and the annual debt service guarantee of the new market tax credit funding allocation of $5.2 million. This agreement is contingent on the closing of the new market tax credit project. Project Teapot is expected to bring many jobs to the area. We're looking at, I think it was mentioned, 150 to the area. Over the term of this agreement, the Project Teapot funding will require repayment of the initial funding amounts. Corey, do you want to add to that?
Just one thing, we did share this agreement as well as the one behind this with the town attorney. We've had some discussions as late as today. There are a handful of things that I think that are a few amendments and a few things that we'd like to update. At the next meeting, I would be glad to share the updated agreement, our concerns, how they would address around some of the contingencies we have as well. But we did want to introduce the idea and the basic meat of what the agreement was for. But we will work with Hood to continue to finalize this agreement. We should have a final draft ready for council to review, and I'll be glad to share that once we iron out all the details.
And
Close,
but I'm sorry, we will structure the agreement such that the $289,500 will be reimbursed to us, and that'll be in the agreement.
Yes, that's correct.
Mayor, the administrative committee recommends forwarding this agreement request to the full council contingent upon having discussions with the town attorney.
Did you get that clarity? Is that part of that? What we're talking about?
Last item, number 6, Main Street Edenton parking lease agreement. The town of Edenton and Main Street Edenton will be the 2 parties to the parking lease agreement. In order to close on the new market tax credit and secure funding for the parking deck work, it will be necessary to have the ownership decision in place. The lease agreement will not be valid after 7-year new market tax credit compliance period, and will also be contingent on the new market tax credit closing. Any additional information?
Same thing, we'll be glad to share the updated version that we get once we get the last few details ironed out with the town's attorney. I'd say we're probably 85 or 90% there. There's a small list of changes that we'll highlight just so they're very clear on what has evolved since this meeting. But
Mayor,
And hold on, just one, and it's a point of clarification, the town will always own that asset, it's not.
yes, that's correct.
All right.
Mayor, the administrative committee recommends forwarding the parking lease agreement request to full council after staff confer with the town attorney. And Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you. I said we were going to put you to work, I appreciate it. You did a good job.
Now, these last 2 items, will they come up at our next meeting, or is that, because you'll have time to discuss this with further, okay, got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. The next committee meeting is the Finance Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Dixon, who's unable to be with us tonight. Councilman Miller and Turner are on that committee, but I'm sure they would not take offense to Corey leading us on this one. Is that correct? Are you guys okay with that?
Yes, I'm very good with that.
Okay, I thought so. All right, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mayor. If you remember, in 2019, council authorized the sale of the condominium here on Water Street for the amount of $309,500. If you remember, these sales were placed in reserves and allocated for future use of projects that would improve the life of town citizens. They had to be of major impact. In January of '23, if you remember, We did allocate 19,500 of these funds due to a recreation study, leaving the remaining balance of $289,500, which is consistent with what we had just discussed in the economic agreement above. This budget amendment that is presented would allow council to allocate that remaining balance, which, if you remember, in the economic development agreement is a reimbursement style one for Project Teapot to help support with the initial funding needs and soft costs as a result of this project. And this budget amendment accompanies items 5 from the administrative committee.
And this is the same project that we discussed that would create 150 new jobs.
Yes, that's correct. And if the finance committee is okay with it, staff recommends
I recommend,
the consent.
I'll make a motion, we allocate the remaining balance.
All right, so you'll report back to us in December on that.
Well, I make a motion tonight, I'm sorry, I'm just making this decision.
Yeah.
Presentation.
Push it forward.
Yeah, push it forward.
Yeah.
I got carried away with the motion. Just push it forward. I get a second.
All right. To the general public, thank you as always for coming tonight. The next matter that we need to discuss is a closed session matter, and I'm about to entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the NCGS 143-318 11A6 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by this public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations, or to discuss, that doesn't apply, so I'm not even read that part of it. So for those reasons, I would entertain a motion and a second to go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, we're now in closed session. Thank you.